Welcome to 100 Yards of Football this morning. I'm your host, Vincent Turner. If you like the video today, please come in and share it. My topic this morning is going to be the number one ranked defense in all of college football this year, the Georgia Bulldogs. And a gentleman is going to help me break down the Georgia defense and tell us why the Bulldog defense is playing at a high level. It's my man, Mr. Daniel Kelly. He's coming live to us from Key West, Florida. His resume is unbelievable. He's a writer right now for Sports Illustrated. He's a writer right now for NFL Draft Diamonds. He's a former pro scout with the New York Jets under two of the greatest coaches in the game, Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick. And he's got a great book out on Amazon, Whatever It Takes. And I tell everybody out there, any fan that loves football, please buy his book because it's very inspirational. You will love his story. So, my man coming from Key West, Florida, this morning, joining me here on 100 Yards of Football to talk about the number one ranked defense of all of college football this year, the Georgia Bulldogs. How you doing, Mr. DK, Daniel Kelly?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Thank you, Mr. Turner. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, man. Ready to talk football. Ready for you to tell us why Georgia is so great this year with several NFL draft prospects, and just tell the world what do you see, because you got the experience. You was under two of the greatest coaches that ever coached the game in the NFL.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. And of course, it all starts with another coach who was under one of those coaches who was another coach another time. Of course, was Kirby Smart. It all starts and ends there as far as why Georgia's playing so well. Of course, Kirby Smart used to be on staff with has a lot of experience with Nick Saban. I'm sure we've all heard that name before, down from Alabama. And of course, Nick Saban connects the dots to Bill Belichick when he was back on the staff with him with the Cleveland Browns. So this is something where, why is Georgia doing so well? Why is their defense number one? Like I said, it starts and ends with Kirby Smart. He's a guy that, he's a tenacious recruiter. I did some research and saw an article to call him a ruthless recruiter. He's somebody that's very competitive and very driven. And he's somebody that can, he can walk into a living room and he can talk NFL. And that's a big part of this, when you're recruiting talent, because every kid's dream that laces it up and puts on the helmet and straps the chin strap, the dream is to play in the NFL. And those who have the ability to walk into a living room with a family and sit down with the recruit, sit down with the parent or the parents, sit down with the family and talk NFL football and be able to sell that dream, and not just sell the dream like, maybe someday you can make it in the NFL, but actually having a coach sitting in your living room who's been in the NFL. I mean, Kirby Smart has been on staff with the Miami Dolphins. He's been there. He knows what it takes to get there. He's been around NFL guys. And of course, he's been around Saban for years, who also not only was with the Miami Dolphins, but also back on staff in his earliest beginnings with Bill Belichick with the Cleveland Browns. So Kirby Smart can talk NFL. Now, this is very important. About 2 years ago, I sent out a proposal to the bottom third of all the colleges in America. And I myself wanted to get into recruiting on a college level at that point, or was trying to, came closest with Bowling Green, talking to their AD a little bit. And I applied there. And what my proposal included was just what Kirby Smart is doing. Going into the house, talking about NFL football, saying, hey, listen, I know what it takes to get you there, and I know what it takes once you get there. That's a big part of this, guys. That's something that's why they're recruiting. I mean, what we see in the field today, as you alluded to, Mr. Turner, from the number one defense in college football. This is not just something they woke up and decided to become. This has been a few years in the making, starting with the recruiting process that nobody else could see behind the scenes, and now it's manifesting on the field. Now, when I look at the team, I've watched several of these players, as you know, Mr. Turner. When you look at the team on the field, what you're seeing is the first thing that jumps out at me is the aggressive nature of the defense. Aggression wins. These guys are flying to the football. They're making plays. They're gang tackling. They want it. They're playmakers, a lot of these guys, and that's what's helping. There used to be a day and age where Nick Saban was he held the title for years of being the king of college recruiting. I'm starting to see it swing. The pendulum is swinging a little bit, and I'm starting to see Kirby Smart's name mentioned as a king of recruiting, and it all starts there. And the team is just really talented. They're talented from a schematic standpoint. They're a 4-3 team that that really, when you talk about becoming NFL ready, it's not just being able to sell the dream, but it's being able to coach these guys and prepare them for a career in the National Football League. And that's what I'm seeing. I mean, if you look at Georgia's defense during a game, it looks very similar as far as alignment, in terms of scheme, in terms of in terms of everything. It looks very similar to what you would see during an NFL game. So when the transition happens, these guys go from Georgia to the NFL. It's not going to be a culture shock. It's not going to be, it's not going to be all of a sudden these guys are going to be like, out of their league, so to speak. They're going to be in their element because they've had such great preparation. They've had such good coaching. They know what to expect, for the guys who are going to get the call on NFL draft day. I'm sure, Kirby Smart will be right there telling them what to expect, how it's going to go. He'll coach them long after the season and prepare them for the next step, because let's face the reality of this. Okay, the more number one draft picks that Kirby Smart can get into the National Football League, the easier his job is going to become as a college recruiter. This is why Saban has also had a lot of success through the years, as he has a laundry list of guys who have gone in the first round. So not only is Saban a guy who was in the NFL and can sell the NFL dream, but he also has a long list of accomplished players that have come out of his program that have gone to the NFL. And that's really what this comes down to. This comes down to relationships. This comes down to scouts talking to coaches. This comes down to, getting these guys in position to be drafted highly and selected highly in the process. And that's what's happening at Georgia. And the more years this goes on, and the more years and the more players that Smart can get into the NFL at this level in the first or second, third rounds, it's his job, like I said earlier, is just going to become that much easier, because now kids are going to want to go play there even more so. Not that they didn't before, but now they're going to want to all the more, because now they're going to see, like, okay, well, where's my best chance of making it into the NFL? Well, I could go to Alabama. I could go to Georgia. Now they're in that discussion. And the fact that he has the number one defense in the country, and the fact that that we're seeing people start to refer to Kirby Smart as the king of recruiting. There may be, and I'm just hinting at this, there may be a time of transition here where Georgia all of a sudden could become the powerhouse of college football eventually. We'll see. But right now, Kirby Smart has got the recruiting process, he's got the coaching process, and he's got the players in the field playing at an extremely high level, Vince.
Okay, when you look at Georgia, and I know that when you was with the Jets, you told me previously that what makes a good defense is the interior, the D-line. Tell our audience out there what you like about Jordan Davis, Trayvon Walker, Nakobe Dean, and Adam Anderson.
Well, what I like is all four of them can make plays. That's the beginning of it. Playmakers make plays, and I've been told by NFL executives that I've worked with that who have mentored and taught me a lot throughout the years. I've been told that there's two different guys on the field really. There's just guys like Bill Parcells used to call Jags, which stood for just another guy, and we all see those every week. And then there's a notch above. Then there's the playmakers. And I've been told by a good scouting friend of mine that you can never have enough playmakers on the defense. And when you mention those four players, Mr. Turner, all four of those guys, on tape, do show up from time to time as guys that are making plays. Jordan Davis, obviously, Mountain Man, affectionately called Godzilla. long arms, big, slender, frame, just a big man, just a lot of man. That's what he is. He can be disruptive in the interior of the line, and I can't understate this enough, is that or overstate, I should say. It's something where the interior of the line. Yeah, we all understand the pass rush coming from the outsides in a 43. And when I say 43, I mean 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers. We all know the pass rush comes from the edges a lot of times. But when you can get, I can't tell you how many NFL teams really do not get a push in the pocket, a real push. And a lot of times those are the easiest positions, especially over center. If you can get a push into the pocket and get the push into the quarterback's face and disrupt the pocket, that is extremely that's a huge advantage, extremely important. And so that's something that Davis provides, to your point, Mr. Turner. When you look at the other guys, Adam Anderson is a guy that, he's to me the best of the group that you mentioned. He's a guy that has a lot of speed off the edge. He also has a lot of power, and he has a lot of desire to get to the quarterback. That's very important. He's a guy that can beat the offensive tackle. A lot of times he's coming off the defense's left side against the offense's right tackle a lot of times, and he's a guy that can get upfield quickly and get through what I call the back door of the pocket, which is the at the very back edge of the pocket. You get through there and you go through the back door and get to the quarterback. He can also he shows some pass rushing acumen as far as some polish is concerned. When I'm talking about Anderson, he's a guy that showed a swim move. He can spin. He can close very quickly in the pocket. He's very disruptive. He's a playmaker. You want to hear, if you're an NFL coach, if you're sitting in an NFL war room before the draft, some of the top words, some of the top verbiage you want to hear about a defender is you want to hear the words disruptive. You want to hear the words playmaker. You want to hear the words speed, power. You want to hear the word want, because I can't tell you, I mean, the game is won or lost, guys, from the neck up, and the desire, the want. Bill Parcells, one day when I was in with the Jets, it was the only day actually that he sat down with me one-on-one at a table, and I was getting some lunch, and all of a sudden he walked in to get some lunch, and I was like, there was like probably 20 tables in there, and he sat down with me, and I was my first year in the team, and he sat down and with his lunch, and he said, Dan, he said, there's one thing you do here, learn the critical factors of scouting. And then he closed up the container, the styrofoam container, and walked away. And, classic Bill Parcells style, he's a man of few but very impactful and powerful words that he spoke to people. And that was very powerful. Now, I didn't even know what that meant until my time after the Jets ended, when I had a chance to talk to a scouting friend and kind of unpack that years later. But one of the critical factors, these are elements, these are characteristics of what makes a player special. And one of the things that makes a player special is in Bill Parcells' terminology, is football important to the guy? So when I say desire, when I say want, that's what's showing up on film. When you look at Adam Anderson, number 19, you're looking at a guy that's very physically gifted. He's got the speed and the desire, but a lot of guys in the NFL have the speed and the build. The thing that separates the guys from the playmakers are the guys with the want. W-A-N-T, and Anderson has it. When I look at a guy like Dean, number 17, this is a guy that's playing at the middle linebacker spot and coming in a 43 defense. This is a guy that he can kind of do it all. They drop him some. I watched him against Clemson. They drop him some in the coverage. He's a guy that has enough speed and range to get to the perimeter, to get to the sidelines. He's a guy that can fill into the gaps as a middle linebacker, a guy that can make plays, a guy that seems to have pretty decent technique, not as explosive as a guy in pass coverage or run stopping that I would want him to be if I'm pulling the trigger on draft day. But oh, wow. I mean, this guy has special speed. He has special closing ability. And I think the best part of his game from what I saw on tape was his ability to blitz from that middle linebacker spot. It's special, guys. It is. And, I can't tell you how rare that is in the National Football League and how important that is. Could really, raise his stock in the draft. Is the ability to blitz from that middle linebacker spot, because that's not something a lot of teams can do in the NFL, and they don't have the ability to actually get to the quarterback from that spot. So when you have somebody that can actually get to the quarterback from that spot as a defensive coordinator in the National Football League, that just opens up your abilities to it just gives you more options in your game planning. So a guy like a Dean is somebody that if like the Detroit Lions were to draft somebody like this and plug him in the middle, in that 34 even, he would instantly become their best linebacker they have on the field. And then when you look at Walker, number 44, this is a guy that's coming off the edge as a defensive end, sometimes standing, sometimes with his hands down in the dirt. This is a guy is a more of a brute power guy, not explosive at the point of attack. In terms, he's not a guy that's going to jolt and pop, and he doesn't have a lot of twitch at the point. He's not getting a lot of movement at the point. When he first makes contact, that's what I mean by point of attack. But he is a guy that has a lot of natural weight room, raw power and strength. He's a guy that can push. He's a guy that can fight. He's a guy that competes. He's a guy that, really keeps going at it. And, if I had to rank these guys, I would say, Anderson's number one. I would say Jordan Davis number two, Dean number three, and Walker number four. I just like they all make plays, Mr. Turner. That's the bottom line. At certain times they make plays. This is why Georgia is having the number one defense on the field, because right there with those four names you just brought up and have me speak to, those four guys are playmakers. Some more than others, but the bottom line is they're making plays, and that's the name of the game.
You brought up some very excellent points just about talking about the interior, the scheme. That's why I love it. That's why you're the best in the business when I talk about being the scouting these players. What I say about Georgia, I'm a history guy, and I'm always comparing them to other defenses of the past in college football. Think about this. The defense that Georgia has this year is only allowing 6 points a game. 24 sacks. If you're talking about being athletic, Mr. Adam Anderson. Then you talked about the ability to have playmakers, 8 interceptions. But I'm looking back with them 8 interceptions. I'm looking at Georgia defense overall having good coverage in the secondary. And then most of all, as you just kind of broke down, their ability in the D-line to only allow 2 yards to rush. And when I think about Georgia, man, and I'm 61 years old, the first thing I think about Michigan State in 1966, they had a great defense with Bubba Smith, George Webster, Charles Thornhill. Then I go on down the road a few years later, the 71 Nebraska Cornhuskers. Some people consider the greatest team ever. They had Johnny Rodgers on offense. But think about their D-line, Woolley Harper, John Dutton, Larry Jacobson, Rich Glover, all them played in the NFL. Then moving down to the mighty USC Trojans in 1972. Think about who they had. Adam Anderson reminds me a lot of Richard Batman Wood that played on the team that went on and got drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Then you got Marvin Cobb that was on that team, Charles Anthony. Then the 73 Oklahoma Sooners. What more can you say? The Georgia D-line with Jordan Davis, Adam Anderson. They remind you of that Boomer Sooner D-line that had the Salmon brothers, Leroy, Dewey, and Lucius. And then I couldn't be wrong. And a lot of people get upset at me if I didn't mention the 78 Alabama Crimson Tide. Roll Tide under the great Bear Bryant. They had that great defensive game against Penn State in the 1979 Sugar Bowl. Alabama ended up winning 14-7. And on players that played on that team, the D-line especially, Brian Braggs, Warren Lyles, Wayne Hamilton, Marty Lyons that played with the New York Jets, E.J. Jr. out of Nashville, but most of all, Barry Krause. And family, the 1991 Washington Huskies, Steve Edmond, DeMarco Farr, Walter Bailey, Dave Hoffman, Jamie Fields. So when you look at that Georgia defense, and based on your just observation, I see why the Dogs have the number one defense in the country. And I see why everybody's picking them to win the national championship in Indianapolis, Indiana this year. Final words about the Georgia Bulldogs defense, Mr. Daniel Kelly.
Well, I tell you, bringing back memories, Mr. Turner, when you talk about Steve Dempman, that goes back to my scouting roots. That's the first year I started looking at players.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
So I was in.
He was a real good player, man.
Yeah, he was. I was in typing class, typing up scouting reports when everyone else was doing their schoolwork, trying to get an internship back with Washington back when I was 17, 18 years old, writing up those guys. But no, when I look at, final words on Georgia, like I said, they're good, and I would expect them to be good for a long time because of the recruiting process I mentioned at the top of the show. This specific unit, very impressive. When you look at great defenses, the first thing you look for is you look for the aggression factor. They have it. They fly to the ball, as I mentioned. On draft day, I know that Jordan Davis is getting all the press. But for my money, my draft board, if I'm lining these guys up, I'm taking Adam Anderson. Guys, that's my number one prospect from Georgia on that defense. I cannot tell you how rare the combinations he has that he's showing on film, and what that will mean to an NFL defense. Because when you line up, usually the left tackle in the NFL is the best tackle. The right tackle is not as good with the footwork. So when you put a guy like an Adam Anderson over the right tackle in the National Football League, I think that I don't see a whole lot difference. I think you're going to see the same things in the NFL as you're seeing at Georgia. I think that speed and that power and that want is going to terrorize NFL offenses. This could be one of the better pass rushers we've seen come out of college football in a while, as long as those three things stay true. But yeah, the whole unit is very good. Georgia fans have a lot to be excited about, and for not just for this year, as you mentioned, with the possibility of a national championship, but also long term. This is a very good team, and again, I cannot give enough credit to Kirby Smart, a guy who sat under the greatest coach in college football history with accomplishments with Coach Nick Saban, a guy who took notes for a lot of years, a guy who learned from the best, and now he's doing it. So I know there's a fierce rivalry between him and Saban, but I'm sure Saban's smiling somewhere because it's always good to see the guys come off the tree and do well. Very, very, very impressive. Very impressive. And, it was fun watching, Mr. Turner.
You know how I do it here on 100 Yards of Football. When I think about the Georgia Bulldogs defense, I think about the great poet Morris Day, former lead singer of the time. He had a song that went by The Color of Success. Looking at the Dogs defense, patient gone, time to move along, no one to blame. It is time to win. So don't criticize, try to realize the Georgia Bulldogs have the number one defense in the country and the number one team. So if you liked the video this morning, please come in and share. I'd like to say thank you and much love to my man, Mr. Daniel Kelly, coming from Key West, Florida this morning. I'm Vincent Turner here on 100 Yards Football, and much love to our producer this morning, Mr. Logan Landers.
Absolutely.
So God bless here on 100 Yards Football, and y'all have a wonderful day.
Bye.